All right, let's dive into a really cool and maybe a little bit misunderstood feature in programming, the nested class. This is your secret helper, and we're going to figure out why.
So, you're deep into coding, right? And you think to yourself, I could really use a little helper class right here, but I don't want anyone else to see it. It should only exist for this one class it's helping. Well, if you've ever had that thought, you have stumbled right onto the exact reason nested classes exist.
And to make this whole thing click, we're going to use a simple analogy. Just picture your main class, the big one, as a kangaroo. And that secret little helper class, well, that's its Joey, tucked safely away inside the pouch.
Yep, you heard that right. We are literally putting a class definition inside of another class. And that is the whole concept we're unpacking today.
So what does that really mean? It means the nested class is completely contained. Its entire world, its whole scope, is limited by its outer class. Just like our Joey, it doesn't just wander around on its own. Its existence is tied to the kangaroo.
Now things get a little more interesting because there are actually a couple of different kinds of nesting classes. And you guessed it, we can explain them with our kangaroo and Joey. First, you've got your static nested class. Think of this one as more of an independent roommate. Yeah, it lives in the same house, but it's kind of separate. But then you have the non-static inner class, and that is our true Joey. It's totally dependent on its parent, the outer class. And because of that super tight relationship, the inner class is way more powerful. And honestly, it's the one you're going to use most of the time. So from here on out, we're focusing on our Joey, the inner class.
This brings us to the absolute best part. The reason inner classes are so awesome. They have a superpower, a special privilege that comes from being inside that pouch.
And here it is. The Joey can reach out and use everything the kangaroo has. All its variables, all its methods, and get this, even the stuff marked private. It's a level of access that no other class gets. It's a total VIP pass.
Okay, let's see it in action. Here's our outer class, that's our kangaroo, and you can see defined right inside it is our inner class, the Joey. Notice the outer class has this variable called outer x.
Now zero in on that inner class. See how its display method just uses outer x? Just like that. No special getters, no passing it in as a parameter. The Joey just reaches out and uses the kangaroo's variable like it's its own.
And would you look at that? When you run it, it works perfectly. The inner class grabbed the outer class's variable, no problem at all. That is the superpower right there.
But, of course, with great power comes a really important rule. You can't just create a Joey out of thin air. It has to have a kangaroo. An inner class object can only exist if an outer class object exists first. It's totally dependent.
So this leads us to the rules of the pouch, so to speak, because while the Joey can see everything the kangaroo has, it is strictly a one-way relationship. Which brings up the obvious question, right? Can the kangaroo reach into its own pouch and start messing with the Joey's stuff?
Okay, let's test it. This time, our inner class has its own private variable y. And look, the outer class has a method that tries to print y. What do you think? Is this going to work?
Nope, not a chance. You get a big, fat compilation error. And this shows the rule perfectly. The kangaroo has no special access to the Joey's members. The Joey gets to keep its own secrets. That access only flows one way, from the inside out. Okay, so now that we know the rules, where do we actually use these things? Well, their flexibility is where they really become a game changer.
Now check this out, because this is wild. You don't have to define your inner class at the top level of the outer class. You can actually define one inside a specific method, or an if statement, or even inside a loop.
Look at this code. The entire inner class, its definition, its creation, its use, is happening inside a for loop. That means we're creating a brand new temporary little helper class on each and every iteration. How cool is that?
So why on earth would you do that? Well, it means you can create these little pop-up helpers at the exact moment you need them, and they vanish when you're done. This is super common for handling things like button clicks in a user interface. You can define the code for what a button does right there inside the button logic itself.
And just a little fun fact for you. This feature wasn't always in Java. The very first version, Java 1.0, didn't have nested classes at all, but they proved to be so useful that they were added in the very next release, 1.1.
We've seen how a Joey can be a secret helper, tucked away inside its kangaroo. But what if a helper was so temporary, so single-use, that she didn't even bother to give it a name? Well, that's a whole other level of secrecy, and it shows you just how deep this kangaroo pouch really goes. Something to chew on.